Leviticus chapter 4. Now, Leviticus chapter 4 begins another segment. It begins by saying, now the Lord spoke to Moses. I think another way of looking at it would be, and then. Why and then is that after chapter 3 finished, then God continued to say things to Moses. That is how we will read it. And as we have seen, God is speaking to Moses from inside the tent of appointment, right? From the tabernacle. And Moses is outside the tent of the tabernacle. So everything that is being said in the first 3 chapters is about chapter 1, the burnt offering, and chapter 2, chapter 1, the burnt offering of the animals. Chapter 2 would be the offering of grain. Chapter 3, we did yesterday, is about peace offering. Now come to chapter 4, it speaks of sin offering. Now, in all of these instances of chapter 1 and chapter 3, where we have the burnt offering in 1 and sin and peace offering in 3, where it involves animals, we could see 3 kinds of animals being discussed. One would be from the cattle, one will be from the goats, and one would be from the sheep. And each of them will discuss how animal sacrifices have to be slaughtered. What do you do with the blood? How do you take care of the insides and the fat, and what it is burned, and then you get the sweet aroma. And in many cases, and they were probably eaten. But in this particular chapter, in chapter 4, they don't eat any of this. For example, the Passover as an offering to the Lord, they eat the Passover. But in this case, in chapter 4, it's about sin. And so when it's about sin, God is very particular about it. Although in principle, it's still talking about the 3 classes of animals, and they were slaughtered. What type of animal, whether it's male or female, the condition of the animal, what do you do when you slaughter and collect the blood? Who do what? What do you do with the entrails, the insides, and the fat? And so all of these are peculiar for burnt offering, for grain offering, and then for peace offering, and now we are at sin offering. So let's examine this chapter. It says, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if a person sins unintentionally against any of the commandments of the Lord in anything which ought not to be done, and then they do something, they do any of them. Now, this is the condition of a sin offering. Every time we think of a sin offering, we probably don't quite understand what it is. So let me get this right so that we can understand this. The word sin, and let's do a whiteboard here. The word sin is khatat. So it is pronounced as khatat. And it's often translated as sin. In the English anyways. But in the English, practically every word that resembles some form of sin is called sin. But let's stay with this word khatat. The principal meaning of khatat is to miss. Now this is important for us to realize. In the book of Judges, in chapter 20, verse 16, this is what it says. He says, Among all these people were 700 select men who were left-handed. Everyone could sling a stone at a hair's breadth and not miss. Now that is the verse. And the reason why I want to point out to you is we can read this and none of these things talk about sin. But this word sin, the word miss is khatat. And khatat actually means miss. To miss the point, to miss the actual principle. And it gives us a connotation of something that we didn't do it intentionally. We were careless. Okay? Careless. Unintended. And because you missed, you shot and then you missed it. And when you miss it, it's not that you purposely want to miss. And so in Judges chapter 20, these people will not miss because they are so sharp a shooter with a sling. But in this chapter, in Leviticus chapter 4, the word translated as sin, as khatat, means that if somebody miss doing something. So let us continue here. So it says, if a person sins or miss, now we have a second word which strengthens the word sin, which is to miss, and it says unintentional. Unintentional is shagaga, right? But the actual word here is a mistake. A mistake. Now, when does a person make a mistake? Well, the person makes a mistake not intentionally, but inadvertently, by error, by being ignorant, by being not aware, and by being careless. And so in chapter 4, we get a much better picture of how the Hebrew people define sin. And in this case, God is defining it. If a person miss a mistake, miss unintentionally, not purposely, right? What did the person miss? It says that the person missed against the commandments of the Lord. What are commandments? Mitzvot. Commandments means God tells you, do this, but you didn't. And it'd be very much like a parent telling a child, you know, today, before you eat, you should clean your room. And then when it comes to time for eating, the child didn't clean the room. And then you ask, what happened? How come you didn't clean the room? And the child says, I was too engrossed playing my game. Did he intentionally not do it? Well, he was carried away. It was a mistake. And so that is what commandments were given. Clean the room, but the boy forgot. And so this is what this passage means. If a person have been told the commandments of God, but he missed doing it, but it was a mistake. It was an error. He didn't mean it. And that would be the idea here, which ought not to be there. And then he did it. So in some cases where God says, don't do, and then he didn't know he did it. Now, this one requires something that this person has to do. And so the first thing is this. This is the type of error. Miss unintentionally. if this was the anointed priest that did this sin, and because the anointed priest did this sin, he would have bring the guilt. Now, this is a very important word. The word guilt here is also sin. This is also the word khatat. Which is very similar to the word sin. So the word sin carries many meanings, but in the English, we have actually missed it, right? So the anointed priest, when he sins, he brings the sin on the people. The people would be the Israelites. Then God says, let him offer. The word offer is to bring this bull, right? He has to bring this to the Lord for his sin, his own sin, right? Which he has sinned. So you notice sin is actually an action. It's not a thought. It is not a thing. It is an action. And by doing this, he has to offer to the Lord. He has to come to God and bring a young bull without blemish as a sin offering. That is the important thing, which means that for this kind of sin, you need to offer a sin offering. And this sin offering is a young bull without blemish. Remember what is without blemish? Complete, whole. Young bull would be a male, right? He shall bring it to the door of the tabernacle of meeting in the face of God and lay his hand on the bull's head. What does that mean now? When you lay the hand on the bull's head, you are saying that this is my offering and what is being done is for me, right? And then you must kill the bull before the Lord. And that would refer to a slaughter. A slaughter. Now, by a slaughter, we would need to understand that a slaughter need to shed blood. This is not a stab in the heart and let the bull die or strangle the bull, but basically it's to slaughter the bull that you shed its blood. Verse 5, then after this, the anointed priest shall take some of the bull's blood, some, not all, bring it to the tabernacle of the meeting, because he was in front, right? The priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before the Lord in front of the veil of the sanctuary. That would be the veil that separates the holy place called the sanctuary and the Holy of Holies, which the Ark of the Covenant is situated. And nobody can go in behind the veil. So it would be in front of the veil, and he takes his finger, dip in the blood, and sprinkle 7 times. Now, notice this is a ritual. It's a ritual. 7 times refer to what God has always wanted, a complete number. And it has to be done before the Lord. And then it goes on, and the priests shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of sweet incense. Well, inside the holy place or the sanctuary, there is a table of incense, and that is called the altar of incense. And the table all have horns at the 4 corners. And so he is to smear some blood on the corners, on the horns of the altars of the sweet incense before the Lord, which is in the tabernacle of meeting. So he is now inside the sanctuary. And he shall pour the remaining blood of the bull at the base of the altar of the burnt offering. So let's continue. Which is at the door of the tabernacle of the meeting. What do you mean at the door? This is the base of the altar. So if you remember, this is how it looks like. This is the outside. And this would be the threshold. And this outside. And in the inside, we have this. The tent is then split into two. And so now we have the sanctuary. And then this would be the Holy of Holies. This is where we have the incense of the four horns, right? The table of incense. On the outside, we would find that there is an altar. This is a ramp up. And so here is where we are dealing with the blood. The rest of the blood is sprinkled here, right? Okay. So now he shall take from it all the fat. Notice, the purpose of the fat is to be burned. Remember in chapter 3, the fat belongs to the Lord. Of the bull as the sin offering, the fat that covers the innards and all the fat. Again, fat. We look at all the fat. All the fat must be taken out. The two kidneys and the fat. And this one we read yesterday, as on of them by the flanks, and the fatty lobe attached to the liver, that's also fat, right? Above the kidneys, he shall remove, take it out, as it was taken from the bull of the sacrifice of the peace offering. And this would be chapter 3. Okay, this is the sacrifice of the peace offering, exactly what was said yesterday in chapter 3. And the priest shall burn them on the altar of the burnt offering. So burnt offering is in chapter 1 and it is with fire. And so this sin offering has to work like the burnt offering as to be burnt too. But the bull's hide, that is the skin, and all its flesh with its heads and legs, its insides, and the offal. That would be the stomach, right? The offal would be the stomach. The whole bull he shall carry outside the camp to a clean place, where the ashes are poured out and burned on it with wood on fire, where the ashes are poured out as it shall be burned. And so in these first 12 verses, this whole idea is to burn this on the outside the camp, because it's about sin. And symbolically, it is supposed to be taken out. So outside the camp is important, which means that if this was their camp of the tents, he has to bring it outside here and then burn it outside the camp. That is what it means. And then the ashes are poured out and burned on the wood with fire. The ashes is also, I think what you call it, the fat ashes. Maybe that's the 油渣. And that is probably what it means, because God wants it all, and it's burned on the tree, which means that it will burn a long time. When the fat ashes are poured out, it shall be burned too. So in the inside, there was a burnt offering. And then he collects it all and brings everything to the outside to be completely burnt. And that is for the anointed priests who have made a mistake. Okay. So now we carry on. Now from verse 13 to 20, this set of verses speaks about the whole congregation of Israel. When they sin unintentionally, just like the priests just now we talked about, there were commandments, and they're not supposed to do something, but they did it, right? They did it. And so they have done wrong. So this is unintentional because it is not about rebellion. It's about saying, clean your room, but I forgot. Or it says that you are not supposed to eat unclean things, and I ate. Right? Now, if you notice the description here, when we go on, there is these kinds of misses or sins that is hidden from the eyes of the assembly. And they have done something against the commandments of the Lord, which they should not be done. Meaning, maybe they ate some pork, I don't know, yeah, and they are guilty. But nobody has seen it. It is hidden. Okay, this is important. It is hidden. Concealed. Meaning this is a secret. And since nobody knows about it, then it is found out. When the sin which they have committed becomes known, then the assembly shall offer a bull for the sin and bring it before the tabernacle of the meeting. So you notice this one is, when they have done something wrong and they didn't know about it, then nobody cares, right? But now they have done something about it, they feel guilty. And then they have made it known that they have done it. And this affects everyone in the congregation of Israel. Now, maybe it's a food they have eaten and it's been tainted and made unclean, and everybody ate it, and only the cooks knew. But now that somebody have given up the secret, they have felt very guilty, and now the whole congregation is come together to atone for this sin because it was unintentional. Okay, now, so we don't know the category, but all we know is it was not done purposely. Now, verse 15 tells us this. The elders now. Why the elders? In the Israel context, in the Hebrew context, the one who represents the people are the elders. The elders of the congregation would be the elders of every tribe. And they would all come together and they would represent every tribe. So the elders are the ones that the tribes nominate to represent themselves. And so all the elders come together of the 12 tribes and lay their hands on the head of the bull before the Lord. So all of them put the hand on the bull. And you notice that laying of the hands is a sign, it's a symbol, right? Of saying that by our authority that has been passed to the bull. And whatever they have done is passed on symbolically to the bull. And this is done before the Lord. Then the bull shall be slaughtered. Now, I just don't like the word killed. I think slaughter is a much better word to give us the connotation that it was killed, not just killed, but it was cut up and the blood was shed. Okay? And it says before the Lord. The anointed priest shall bring some of the bull's blood to the tabernacle of meeting. Why the priest? Because the people can't. Only the priest can go into the tabernacle of meeting. The priest shall dip his finger in the blood, sprinkle it 7 times again before the Lord in front of the veil, not behind. It's always in front because it separates the the Holy of Holies from the rest. Verse 18, you shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar which is before the Lord, which is in the tabernacle of meeting. And that would be the same as the priest. This would be the altar of incense. And then he shall pour the remaining blood at the base of the altar of the burnt offering, which is outside the tent of meeting, but at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And he shall take all the fat from it and burn it on the altar. Notice, all the fat, because the fat belongs to the Lord. And he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull as a sin offering. Thus he shall do with it, so the priest shall make atonement for them. And the word atonement here is important. Verse 20. And the word atone is cover. That it would be made a covering, a reconciliation. What else do you call this? To cancel or pay up. So in short, what this means is, when we use this big word in English called atonement, the Hebrew word is kafar, from where we get our English word, I think, cover, right? Kafar, and where we get our English word to cover. And it is to cover all these sins. It is to cancel the sins. It is to appease God, where we have symbolically paid up for it. And this is what God wants, and we have done it. That is what it means. And then it goes on to say that it will be forgiven them. What is the word forgiven? Salak. Salak. Right? It is to pardon. Forgive. Right? And basically you find that this concept is to take one out of a debt. And so when a person does some of these misses or sins, right, unintentionally, there is something owed to God, because God says, I told you not to do it, but you did it. Or I told you to do it, but you didn't do it. And it was not intentional. So you bring all this bull and you kill it, you spill the blood, you do all this ritual as described right here. And by finishing all this ritual, the priest will have represented the people that the completeness of settlement with God is done. And it shall be salak, forgiven them, because God will not bring this up again. The debt is cancelled. That is what it means. Now the rest of it, the priest will carry the bull outside the camp, because remember, this is a sin offering. It must be taken out of the camp and not inside, and burn it as he burned the first bull, which the priest himself did. It is a sin offering for everyone, the whole congregation. This is the second part. Now we look at the third part. The third part is in verse 22, and it speaks of a ruler. Now this word is tricky, right? It's tricky. A ruler would be someone who is exalted. A prince, right? A captain. Somebody who leads. How else should we say this? Someone who is lifted up amongst the people. So it could be a king as well. So if this person who is someone who is lifted up, who is a prince, who is a captain, who is a king, And he did exactly this, sinned, and did it unintentionally against any of the commandments of the Lord his God, which he should not be done, and is guilty. Or if his sin which he has committed, notice this is action, right? Every time we talk about sin is action, comes to his knowledge, meaning he wasn't aware and now he knows what it's about. The first one is he did something that he didn't realize, and then he felt wrong. So he feels guilty. This one he doesn't know, and then it comes to his knowledge. So the second one is he didn't know, and then he gets to know. The first one, he finds out somehow, and then he feels guilty. Now, he also shall bring his offering. In this case, no longer a bull. Notice, it's about goats. It's about goats. And it should remind us of chapter 3. And in this case, it must be a he-goat, male goat, without blemish. Now, in both cases, it needs to be complete. So when you bring an offering to God, even if it's a free will offering, compared to a sin offering, also cannot tintai, right? There's no suka. You must do it according to what God has instructed. So this ruler shall lay his hand on the head of the goat. Again, symbolic of saying, now I have passed everything, my guilt, onto the goat. And he shall slaughter. Again, I like the word slaughter. He shall slaughter at the place where they killed the burnt offering before the Lord, which is outside. For it is a sin offering. The priest shall take some of the blood, put his finger, put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and pour its blood at the base of the altar of the burnt offering. So this one here has nothing to do inside the sanctuary. It's all outside, because it has to do with the same, the altar of the burnt offering. The altar of the burnt offering, which is outside. And he shall burn the fat on the altar, like the fat of the sacrifice of the peace offering in chapter 3. So the priest shall make atonement. Again, remember what atonement? Kafar. A reconciliation, a cover, a settlement concerning his missus, right? And it shall be forgiven him. Now, I need you all to be very clear. Forgiven is pardon. And pardon is a settlement of a debt. And once a debt is settled, it will no longer be brought back for judgment. So God deals with many things we do on a daily basis that we have no intention of doing wrong. And then if you do, there is a prescription and God will pardon according to the ritual. The last section, second last section is this. Verse 27, if anyone of the common people. What is a common people? This is a very strange word. So let me explain this. If any nefesh of the common people. The word common people is people of the earth, people of the land. Now, people of the land has a particular interesting feature. That this may not be Israelites themselves. It may be the people who have joined the people of Israel in their traveling, right? So they are called common people because they are not Israelites. And they also adhere to the law of God. And they also sin unintentionally because in the day-to-day basis, it also affects them. And that they have done anything against the commandments of the Lord, which ought not to be done, and is guilty. Or if his sin which he has committed comes to his knowledge, which means that he didn't know about it, but then now he knows. So what does he do? He shall bring his offering a kid of the goats. Now this is the goat still, but this time a female and without blemish. Notice the difference? The Israelites bring a male. The non-Israelites, I believe this common people is the non-Israelites, but still without blemish. It must be complete, but it's a female. For his sin, which he has committed. Again, I point out to you, it's an action. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering as a representation that he's committing it to the goat, the female goat. And, well, again, I don't like the word kill, it's slaughter. Slaughter the sin offering at the place of the burnt offering. Then the priest shall take some of his blood with his finger, put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and then pour all the remaining blood at the base of the altar. You notice they are not supposed to take blood. Remember yesterday we said you're not supposed to eat the fat because the fat belongs to the Lord. You're not supposed to eat the blood. And so what do you do with the blood? You pour it all at the base of the altar. And he shall remove all its fat. See, all the fat is taken out from just like the sacrifice of the peace offering, and the priest shall burn it on the altar for a sweet aroma to the Lord, because the fat belongs to the Lord. So the priest shall make atonement. Again, what is atonement? A kafar, a settlement. And it shall be forgiven him. So God also will forgive the people of the land, not just the Israelites of the congregation, but it shall be also for other people of the land, because they are not represented by the elders. So this is a group of people that is, well, I guess the New King James called common people or people of the land. And so they are also in the same, but the difference is this: a female goat. If he brings a lamb, so instead of a female goat, and we are still talking about people of the land, the common people, right, as a sin offering. So he must also bring a female. Doesn't matter, goat or sheep, right, or lamb, without blemish. Lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, kill it as a sin offering at the place where they kill the burnt offering. 34, take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger, put it on the horns of the altar of burnt offering, and pour all the remaining, so that nobody will eat the blood. Again, in verse 35, remove all its fat as the fat of the lamb is removed from the sacrifice of the peace offering. Then the priest shall burn it on the altar according to the offerings made by fire. So made by fire is to put it onto the altar made by fire, that is over the wood or the tree, big logs, and they are burned for the Lord. So the priest shall make atonement. Again, what is atonement? Kafar, settlement. For his sin that he unintentionally committed, right? and it shall be forgiven him, taken as settled. So it won't be brought out again. He has been pardoned. Pardon means done. Not going to count anymore. And God says, peace be with you. And so we have peace. This is chapter 4. Okay? All right. We shall continue tomorrow.
Okay, thank
Sure,
Pastor.
Pastor.